In this episode of Athletic Training Chat, we have Alyssa Vaniman, one of the founding members of LatinxATs. At the time of this episode, Alyssa was still working in LA, but since then, because we did not get this out soon enough, she has taken a new job at Arizona Western College. So we wanted to congratulate her on that and just update everyone on this as you get into this episode, and she talks about that a little bit. In this episode, we talk about going a DAT route, and now that Alyssa has been into that program for a little while, she gives some really unique insight on DAT versus PhD. We also talk about LatinxATs and founding it, what inclusion looks like, and how to make that a focus, not only for the different groups, but for others, including myself, that want to be allies to help just make things better when it comes to everyone in the field of athletic training. As always, we are powered by Mueller Sports Medicine. Please consider them for your next sports medicine related purchase. Don't ever hesitate to reach out to them with new ideas. They are constantly innovating and trying to come up with stuff that helps us as athletic trainers do what we need to do. Without further ado, enjoy this episode. Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. We are on with Alyssa Vaniman, who is out in California. Athletic trainer out there. We were just talking on, we've actually interviewed once, and we're doing this a second time through, which is going to be great. I'm looking forward to the insight here with that, is especially around the DAT and LatinxATs, but just talking about the world of how we're still trying to figure out COVID in the early part of August. Which we also had this conversation, and when we did that now, it was well over a month ago when we did that. So how things have changed, yet not really at the same time. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa to just introduce herself, and then we'll jump in talking about the DAT. And now that you're, I guess, a semester slash however, a term into it, we'll just say that.
Yeah.
So, the relatively recent launch of LatinxATs and everything that has gone into that. So,
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. So my name is Alyssa Vaniman. I am currently an assistant athletic trainer over here in Southern California at Cal State, LA, California State University, Los Angeles. It's part of the CSU system. And as Joel mentioned, I'm also a co-founder of LatinxATs, which is launched recently and has been a primary focus. Like we mentioned, COVID has kind of changed things, but not really. So this has kind of been myself and our co-founder's baby over this few months period, and we've been really trying to make it a focus.
What a great time for something like that to be able to pull focus to it. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So going back, some of the questions we talked about before, but still very pertinent. You work as an athletic trainer at university, which is its own bear of a
it's its own monster right there.
Yep, and then also doing a little bit of per diem work, on call as needed type stuff that we talked about. But deciding to go back to be a doctoral student. And the first time we chatted about it, you were only maybe like a week, maybe two in. So
right, I was very fresh.
You were just getting the hang of it. And yeah, obviously with the world that we're in, you haven't been back to work yet in a quote unquote traditional sense. But how do you see, or how have you and foresee in the future, balancing between the professional work and the requirements of a doctoral degree? And if I remember right, the DAT through Indiana State it's relatively quick in terms of the coursework. So it's not like you're like, for me, I'm doing 1 3-credit course every 8 weeks. plenty for me to handle it, but it's going to take me 4+ years to get through everything.
Right.
Not the case with you. So how have you found balancing all of that?
Right. So, like you said, the ISU DAT program, it's in a unique setup in the fact that we get done in 2 years.
Right.
With that, you are signing up for an extensive course load to get through your classes in that amount of time. So we don't take summers off. So we have summer courses that are required full time, and you're required to be full time for your rest of the time in the DAT. So over the summer, I did take 8 units, or actually 8 or 9. Yeah, 8 or 9. See, they all mush together. I did take 3 classes. And so that was considered full time during the summer, and we got it done in 8 weeks. So it is very extensive. But one thing that I did have to learn is how to manage my time. And that is something that is so stressed in the DAT program, not just for your time in the DAT, but for after as well too. For me going into the doctoral program, it was very important that I not stop learning once I was done with my DAT. I wanted to go on and continue learning and continue being involved with anything or with everything else that I was interested in. And with that comes time management. So it starts in the DAT, and hopefully you develop that healthy habit of managing your time efficiently, and then you can take that out of the DAT. But yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, but the reward at the end is definitely worth it. And getting through that first semester and kind of getting my toes wet, I feel like now I'm able to tread water, and then we can kind of start getting onto Michael Phelps status, each
Right.
each kind of semester getting more and more adjusted to what the coursework is.
So a lot of options out there when it comes to doctoral stuff. I was just having this conversation with one of your other co-founders who just recently finished their DAT.
Yes.
Obviously, between Indiana State and AT still is very big out there with the DAT, and then obviously there's PhD programs for about anything that you'd want to do.
Right.
What drove you to go back and get your doctoral degree? And then kind of part B of that is why looking at a doctorate in athletic training versus the quote unquote traditional, PhD or EDD type of education.
Right. So I actually finished my master's degree in May of 2020. So right in the heat of the pandemic.
Nope.
And then started my doctoral program in June. So I had like a 2-week break, and then I jumped right into it. So really, yeah. So I felt my foot on the gas pedal and really just didn't want to take it off. And I'm like, I'm here now. Let's just keep going. So it was never really going back for me. It was kind of keeping my foot on the gas and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm very fortunate that I had the ability to do that, because I know a lot of people do not have that ability. So I'm very fortunate in that regard. What really drove me to get a DAT over a PhD was, and then if I can say it kind of boldly, I really didn't feel fulfilled in my master's program.
Sure.
And that is no disrespect to my institution or anything like that. I just felt like I left my master's program only with half of my cup filled, and I wanted to pursue a DAT to get my full cup. Is the best way I can explain it. I felt like I got some knowledge in my master's degree, but it wasn't really making me a better clinician. It was making me a better researcher. It was making me a better scholar, no doubt, but I wanted to be a better clinician, a better athletic trainer, a better person to serve patients. And I didn't feel like I was reaching my full potential in my master's program. So that's what really drove me to the DAT. And like you said, there's so many different options of where you want to go to pursue a DAT. But what really drove me to Indiana State was I had honestly been following them on Twitter and social media, and Dr. Eberman and Dr. Games. And I just really liked their transparency, but also their willingness to just help. That you could feel their generosity anytime that I interacted when I wasn't a student.
Mm-hmm.
And that sense was just confirmed when I did join the program. Dr. Eberman, Dr. Rivera, and Dr. Games have really just been everything that I assumed before coming into the program.
Awesome.
So yeah.
And we got to do a episode. One of the co-hosts did it, and yeah, it sets a high mark. But man, that like that's a community you feel like you want to be a part of.
Absolutely. We talk about tradition of excellence at ISU, and they definitely exemplify that. The ISU brand is what they set out and the people that they are. And it is something, once you talk to them, you're just like, I could just talk to you all day. You just get that feeling.
Yeah.
And it's genuine. What you see is what you get.
Now, when we talked the first time, you hadn't had a chance to go to Terre Haute, Indiana. Did you? There was like a big weekend I think I saw pop up on Twitter. I didn't dig into it. Was that in person or no, not yet?
So the way that we do the coursework at ISU, at the end of every semester, we have what we call DAT weekends, which are basically extensive in-person training to kind of enforce what we learned in coursework over the computer.
Right.
But unfortunately with COVID, I do live with my grandparents here in Los Angeles. So, and they are considered in the high risk group. So I took it upon myself. We were given the option, if you weren't comfortable traveling, you don't have to go to Terre Haute. So I tuned in virtually over Zoom. So I was there with a few other students via telemedicine. And so we did practicals and stuff over the computer, but I just tuned in over my computer. But hopefully I'm looking for fall or December-ish to go out to Terre Haute.
Such a great place. Many a national cross country meet that have I attended in Terre Haute.
I remember you telling me that story.
Yeah. I distinctly remember one time I was there walking down to an Applebee's to just get something to eat because where our hotel was, there was nothing else around.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I remember we talked about this, but I want to ask again. With the more clinical base, and you've referenced, you felt a little underwhelmed by getting your master's, and I can relate to that. I mean, I definitely went for my master's for the experience and the GA-ship in hindsight. And yes, I learned some stuff in my actual program, but it wasn't anywhere nearly set up like this is, like your program that you're doing now, or even I've kind of changed my whole educational mindset and my current thing. I left a lot to be learned at Kansas when I was there, and that's on me. But being more clinical, what is the ultimate end game with finishing this program? Is it just enhancing your clinical skills, which is always a good thing, and this puts it kind of on the fast track, instead of a lot of different continuing educations or weekend certifications, or potentially the option of teaching in the future or doing something like that?
Yeah. So one thing that I was told, even when interviewing for the DAT, was you're going to have these set expectations coming in, and they're going to totally change because of the experiences that you're exposed to while in the DAT. So when I initially joined the DAT before my first semester, it was to become a better clinician and then to eventually later down the line become a head athletic trainer at a collegiate institution. Those were my goals. But recently, I have been more open to wanting to teach, and it really has made me inspired to want to pass on what I'm learning to other people. And I think part of that tradition of excellence I mentioned is that you are getting this high quality of knowledge, and you just feel like I need to tell somebody, I need to have other people experience what I'm experiencing, because you feel it changing you, and you're changing for the better. So it's like, why wouldn't I want to put that on somebody? Why wouldn't I want to offer that to somebody? So definitely I have opened up to that. But I watch, we're probably going to talk again next semester, and I'm going to be like, you know what? I kind of want to explore this now too. So I'm very fortunate that I'm in a place in my life that I am open to different opportunities and open to that.
Right.
And I do acknowledge that I'm very lucky in that aspect. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I'm not trying to jump off the DAT thing, so I got this question first, and then if there's anything else you want to cover, if people, there's always options. I've had students for us, look, do they want to go and do a DAT right away after they finish up their program or whatever it may be, or, is it worth going back? Always the question, and this is one I had to answer for myself going back, like, is the financial, investment worth the potential, outcome and, the career progression down the line? And that's always a great unknown. But if you had advice or like an inside scoop for people that might even, have been mulling over a DAT, no matter where that might be, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, one, I know that a DAT is not for everybody, just the structure.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I see that a lot. People ask, should I go for this degree or should I go for this degree? What do you guys think? And I really think you need to ask yourself that question. That's really what I tell people. Whether it's a PhD or a DAT or an MS, MA, whatever, if you're pursuing a degree, it needs to be because you want to do it, because at the end of the day, you're the one completing the coursework, you're the one showing up, you're the one putting in the hours, right? So I tell people the best thing to have is your goals and what degree is going to be the best to get you to your end goal, to get you to goal A, B, and C. So you need to think in the future, because this degree, you're not just getting it to add, alphabet soup at the end of your name, right? It's
Right.
how you apply those degrees that you do earn. So, when people are asked, should I have done this or should I have done that? At the end of the day, it's your career, your goals. You need to know what aligns with you. And then also what institution best aligns with you. I have had experience, where I thought this school was going to be the best fit for me. And then talking to faculty and getting to know the program, it really wasn't. So you need to do your research on that part as well too. So taking time to research what is best for your goals and then what is best for you and your values is my best advice when seeking out higher education, whether that be a DAT, PhD, MS, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Anything else around the DAT that you want to cover before we kind of shift gears to talk Latinx ATs?
No, I think you kind of touched on everything.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Um, like I had mentioned, and we'll time yours and Alejandra's episode to be relatively close to each other.
Mhm.
But talking about Latinx ATs, we're recording on August the 7th. I don't remember if there was a specific day that you guys launched, but it's within the last couple months. Ultimately, kind of starting off, if you want to give just a little bit of what brought about the creation, or just some more like background to the genesis of this group that you and several others formed.
Yeah. So LatinxATs was started by myself and four other of my co-founders. So we, the cool thing about us is obviously we're all of Latin descent. We identify as Latinx, and we all work in different facets of athletic training, either the secondary school level, new grad, higher education, kind of all over the map as well too. And Ellie, who is the initial creator and kind of brought everybody else on board, she really identified a need in our athletic training community, that our what we call our people weren't represented. The Latin community wasn't represented, and I agreed with her. And after seeing her post, I remember seeing the group and joining it, and it was kind of dormant at the time just because Ellie had started her PhD program and
Mm-hmm.
she hadn't been really posting. But I remember thinking, I'm like, how cool, I didn't even think about this, I wish I would have thought about this. And as COVID happened and Ellie started kind of having more downtime and was able to post more and more, myself, Alejandra, Oscar, and Javi, we kind of reached out and we're like, hey, like if you need help getting this project off the ground, we definitely see a need for it and we're here to help you any way we can. And Ellie, being the person she is, she was so open and welcoming and brought us all on board and kind of connected us. And we kind of hopped on and we met over Zoom over this whole COVID thing. And we kind of sat down and like, okay, what do we want to see this, what do we want to see this association or group take off and be, and what do we want it to be for people? And that's kind of where we came for now.
So thank you for the synopsis, and this is one I actually didn't ask on the other one, but I think might be worth the clarification. I know for me personally, but I'm assuming other people. So, like the definition of Latinx in identifying in that way versus just identifying as Hispanic, or
Mhm.
the different. And I am completely ignorant on this, so
Yeah.
this would be great for me. Just the definition of that and how different people might identify as different things, and why, I guess ultimately why you guys went with Latinx instead of, another name for the group.
Right. So, first of all, you're not the first person to have these questions, which
Oh, thank
kind
God.
of just kind of reaffirms why this needs to be here,
Sure.
right?
Absolutely.
And this is, if you do follow us on LatinxATs, you notice a lot of our content is educational, just because a lot of people just don't know, and that's okay. And that is okay. I would rather somebody ask with the intention of learning than
Mhm.
assume and, not want to learn at all. So the difference between Latin and Hispanic, or Latinx and Hispanic, Hispanics refers to language, as Latinx or Latino or Latina refers to where the person is from.
Okay.
So Hispanic is usually derived from a term that means that the person speaks Spanish, and why you don't want to identify, or why you don't want people to, or why you don't want to call somebody who is Latinx Hispanic, is assuming that that person speaks Spanish,
Sure.
when there are definitely other countries included in Latin America that don't identify as Spanish as their main or native language.
Got it.
So yeah, so the
Perfect.
best way I like to tell people is Hispanic is language, whereas Latin is like origin, where the person is from and their ethnicity.
That clears it up
Yeah.
a lot and is very helpful.
Yeah.
Honestly, had assumed it was something involving that Hispanic may be trying to label or pigeonhole people that it shouldn't have, but thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Latinx is, if you came to any one of the founders and asked these questions, you would get a response like this. It's never coming from a guarded place of, well, you should have known that, you
Right.
know, because people don't know, and we want people to ask questions, because that's how people become educated, and that's how you make change.
Absolutely. So the next question I had on it is about the most loaded question I probably could ask. So good for me on that. But with the group being formed, and just looking across, Alejandra listed out some statistics within the NATA specifically, and just the demographics of it. What do you personally and as the group feel like needs to be done to help with diversity and ultimately with that inclusion, which Alejandra also did a great job defining. So please refer back to that, and plus also we'll take your definition of that as well. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I guess broadly first, what needs to be done, what needs to improve
Right.
from kind of a macro level that you see.
Right. So I will speak for myself first. I do not personally feel, as a Latin person and in the field of athletic training, that we are represented very, very much, if any, to be honest. And that is why this group was formed, because we wanted to give a voice to what we know other members were feeling at the time. Um, all of the other members within Latinx and the co-founder, I'm sorry, the other co-founders, we all agree that this group was to educate our allies and to bring representation to a group that we didn't feel had the voice it deserved. So as far as changing on a macro level, we definitely want to get more involved with EDAC, and I think we can really make a change going forward. When we had our first Latinx meeting, it was really encouraging to see so many different EDAC members on there willing to partner up and willing to hear what we had to say as well too. So I'm hoping, to grow our partnership with EDAC. I think that's something that I would look forward to in the future. And then also, I know that, excuse me, that Alejandra is really good at analyzing the statistics, and I wish I was as good as her. I think those statistics need to be well known in the athletic training community, what our member statistics are, so we can analyze and make sure that all different statistical cultures are represented better. So as changing on a macro sense, what I know myself and the other co-founders of LatinxATs would love to see is more partnership and involvement with LatinxATs and EDAC. EDAC has really been the voice of NADA's diversity and inclusion, obviously, and we would just like to become more involved and be able to offer more educational resources, like offering Spanish translation on infographics that EDAC puts out, things that specifically to the Latinx population that would be useful, and especially coming from myself, and I know Alejandra too. We practice in Los Angeles, which is primarily Black and Hispanic, I'm sorry, Black and Latinx, excuse me. And things like Spanish translations, things about relating to patients in those populations would be very useful to clinicians in that base, not only to relate to people who are of Latinx descent, but also to clinicians and also peers that are just Latinx. And like you said, you said ignorant, but you're not ignorant, you're curious, and you want to be more educated, and that's I think is amazing. And as far as diversity and inclusion, I think a big part of inclusion is including allies in our mission and goal. Without allies vocalizing our message and aligning with our views and our message, it can't reach other demographics, if that makes sense. So I think that was something that was so encouraging at our first Latinx meeting, is that we saw so many allies like yourself, asking questions. How can I be a better ally? How can I be a better clinician to serve this patient basis of Latinx, of my Latinx patients? How can I be better? And that was just so encouraging, because I know in my undergraduate career, I went to an undergraduate program in Michigan, and there was never a talk about treating different populations, because there wasn't different populations in the setting that we were in, and that's nobody's fault. That was just what was around us. So the fact that you guys, that people are acknowledging that there is a need for this, is just really reaffirming that we're on the right track.
Yeah, and actually, I that ties into another question, but this is just a comment that kind of came up in the last conversation. Is when you mentioned Latinx and EDAC, and what I think is awesome about both of those, as I've just kind of watched from afar, with it, is ultimately this is where I'm going to get to the next question about being in a place of privilege, how I/others in that position can help. Is it's not all of especially those two groups, none of it is the purpose to disparage anybody else or bring anybody else down. It is literally to help bring more people up, and I think that's a great thing. And I mean, obviously, that whatever that means coming from me, but still, just like the positivity of trying to help move everyone forward and get there, I think is awesome. And so ultimately, again, kind of coming back to the next question of, and I asked it in one of those town hall meetings, that you had, or maybe it was the first one. I think it might have
Mhm.
been the first one. So, okay, in the first one, you know, now more diving into this, which I really hadn't before in terms of, race and culture and different things, and, fully being able to say, like, I recognize I am like the epitome of privilege. And even where we're at, and where I work, like, 10% of our campus is now considered diverse, and that is a milestone for the campus I'm at,
Right.
which is great that it's trending up, but that's still not awesome.
Mhm.
Our staff, not overly diverse. Our AT students, a little bit, but even our student athletes, not. That 10% probably falls right in line with kind of everything. And so even you had mentioned, having the conversation about working with those different athletes and whatnot. And, we don't have a ton, and we don't have a very diverse staff. And that was something I've had a discussion with the group when we did the Race on Athletic Training podcast, which was really eye opening. And I'm hoping we can create more positions to like reach out and try and really do that. But short of that, I may hit you and Alejandra up at some point to do a little continuing ed with the staff, because we just don't have anybody. We don't have anybody on staff that can have that conversation. I think because
Right.
none of us have
Right.
gone through it. We can talk about it, and we can read about it, and we can regurgitate it, but I don't know that that holds the same level of
Right.
impact as having someone that really understands it because they have to live it.
Right.
Long-winded, and I'm sorry, but what other things do you think, like, or would you recommend that, like, a person, you can speak directly to me, that's perfect, can do to really help improve it, whether it be to encourage not only diversity but inclusion on our staff.
Right.
Obviously, I just threw out the idea of having you call in and lead us on a continuing ed thing, which,
Right.
subtle side note, I can get you 10 CEUs for presenting, so that would be good.
All right. We're definitely doing
Yeah,
it.
yes. But just for all the people that want to be active allies,
Hmm.
what recommendations or ideas would you have?
So I think that's a great question, and to kind of revert back to the beginning, um, we as Latinx ATs, like you said, we want to work in unity with EDAC. This has never has been like like a bidding war or anything like that. Our main goal is to push the profession of athletic training forward, and that's something that I really want to echo and reiterate. As far as being a good ally, we actually had a few questions of that in the chat when we did have the first Latinx town hall meeting, and one of the members actually asked to meet with us off camera and kind of just asked the founders, how do you think we can be a better ally? How can
Mhm.
I be a better ally? Because talking about races and culture differences, it's a really tough conversation, and especially right now, because culture and race and racial bias is so prevalent in the world we're living in right now. And to act like it's not is kind of ignoring the problem. So I really want to commend you specifically, and obviously anyone who else is watching this podcast that is interested in being a better ally. You're already taking a huge first step by saying, one, I know I have privilege, but how can I use my privilege in the right way? Because I think a lot of people are in denial of the privilege that they do have, and that there is a difference between races. As much as, people want to say, I don't see color, or, we're all equal, that is a great dream to have, but it's not realistic, unfortunately. In the world we live in, it's not right now. So the fact that you're acknowledging your privilege and you want to use your privilege in a positive way to bring equality across the races is beautiful, and I applaud you as an ally for doing that, because that, I believe, is a big first step. The second thing I can really echo is speaking up. So it's one thing for you to be and I'm just using you because you're right here.
Yep. Oh, that's perfect. Like I said, feel free to just talk to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is one thing for say, yeah, I want to be an ally. I want to be an ally. I support people. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
But now making sure that your actions are backing up what you say.
Yep.
So I have seen people, I'm not racist or I want to be an ally, but they don't shut down racist behavior that is going on in their presence, whether that be colorism, whether that be microaggressions or micro insults.
Yep.
So I always ask the question, are you really wanting to be an ally or are you just wanting to say that? So I always tell people to be the best ally you can be, you have to align your actions and your thought process with that statement. You can't
Mm-hmm.
just say it, you got to live it and you
Right.
got to do it. Because it's one thing for me as a person who identifies as Latinx to say, you can't say that to a Latinx person, but it comes from it comes from a different place and is powerful from somebody who isn't of the same descent speaking up and saying, yeah, you really can't say that. And I have encountered many microaggressions throughout my time as a student and just as a person on this earth. And I can't tell you how many times I would have loved to have an ally speak up in the moment and say, no, you can't say that, or that is wrong, or that is disrespectful.
I don't know if you guys haven't. I haven't. I will again plead that I have not gone and looked at this. It just came across my mind as we were talking. But both, the Latinx AT group or EDAC, and I haven't gone through and looked at all of their resources either. Is that something that you are aware of that people have put together in terms of like identifying those things as an ally? So for me, I think I can probably fairly easily identify overly overt racist
Right.
to a degree, but again, I haven't lived it. I don't know what it means to be discriminated against. I could try and dig into that, and I don't. I mean, my closest experience to being just like the outsider or different is a couple trips over to India where I stuck out like a sore thumb. But again, I was invited over, so I had people that wanted to be around me, which was a great feeling,
Right.
But is that something, if you guys haven't done, maybe I think would be extremely valuable from multiple different cultures, from Latinx or African American, where it's just like here, I what you see and feel and have experienced as a microaggression, I may not be able to recognize because it just isn't in my wheelhouse. But if I had something that could be like, hey, this is a thing that I can reference and be like, now I'm aware of it to identify it. A, do you know of any resources like that? Or B, would you guys be willing to kind of maybe potentially collaborate? Because I think that would be, from what I gathered, even in that town hall, a lot of what allies are looking for is like as much of like a blueprint or, like a roadmap of what we could do. I would personally find extremely helpful because I think that would make, I don't want to say easier, but more recognizable for me to sit there and be like, nope, that's not, hold on now. I don't know, thoughts on that now that I, again, just rambled for a while.
Right. No. So actually, I'm really glad that you brought it up because LatinxATs, we really want to pump out educational content, especially for our allies. So if you actually head over to excuse me, any of our social medias, we have definitions of microaggressions, posts on colorism, relevant topics to our community. And they don't apply just to the Latinx community. Like you said, the Latinx community is not the only one facing these struggles.
Absolutely.
So the post that we put out, and I don't know for on EDAC's end, I can only speak to what Latinx, what we're doing. We definitely have a lot of things in the works right now. One of the projects that I'm working on is turning our social media posts into infographics. So clinicians
perfect page of that we could even post would be unbelievable. I know it's hard to condense it to a page, but that's what I'm envisioning of like
Exactly.
Here's
So
the
us as athletic trainers, we love the infographics, right? The one pagers
We're
and
all about posters and hanging them. Yeah, absolutely.
yes, yes. And I'm all about the shorthand. Let's get straight to the point.
Yes.
So that's one of the big things that we're working on specifically is making our Instagram posts into infographics that people can print and have them in their clinic and that are available to them. And everything that we use, we have sources to back them up too. So they are educational material that we want to, stress that too. So that you can hang in your clinic and you have easy reference to as well too. So so that's something to look forward to on Latinx's part. And I'm sure EDAC has some great resources on their website as well too.
Yep, and I'll go through, and just for people listening, I'll try and go through and find as many of those things that are out there currently and link up to the different things. And
That's
obviously
awesome.
I'll be linking up to all the social media for LatinxATs as well for this episode. But yeah, I think when it's right there in your face, I mean, just speaking personally again, like that would be perfectly helpful to just sit there. And again, we're not overly diverse, unfortunately, where I'm currently at. But when it does happen, to just try and maybe notice things that were not noticeable before, just because I unfortunately didn't have a frame of reference to do it. So
yeah.
What else about LatinxATs would you like to talk about? I feel like we've got a really good kind of overview of it, but anything else specifically?
I just really want to echo that it is an open place, not just I know the name of our group is LatinxATs, but it really is open to everybody. And I think you saw that in the first town hall meeting. We had so many different people from so many different backgrounds. And it really is just a place that we can educate people. That's what we want to do. We recently just put out our mission and vision. And the reason that we waited so long to put that out is because we sent out a initial survey and we wanted to gather data from our members. We just didn't want to make it about the founders, what we wanted. We wanted what the group wanted.
Right.
And I think that's something that is very important to us as founders. It's never going to be something that only us 5 want. It's going to be what the group wants and what is going to better the profession of athletic training. So I really just want to make that known.
Perfect. All ready to jump back into those athletic training 5 questions?
Yeah.
First one is, where do you see the athletic training profession going in the next 5 to 10 years?
So I think this is going to change from the first time that you asked me that, but I would love to see it more diverse, and I would love to see it celebrating that diversity on a higher level. Because I think that we do have so many unique people in athletic training from so many different and beautiful cultures and backgrounds. I would love to see more of that and highlight more of those cultures and diversity that we have within our profession.
Agreed. Like it. What advice would you give yourself if you could go back to your former and younger athletic trainer self, and if you could just set for us what time frame that would be in?
Yeah. So my exposure to athletic training started in high school. So when I was like high school freshman-ish. And when I started athletic training and really discovered what it is, I knew this is something that I wanted. But academically, I didn't know if it was something for me. So a little personal story is I barely graduated high school. I graduated with a 1.9 GPA. And there was times where I thought that was all that was in my cards. I didn't think that I was honestly capable of much else until I got to junior college and I really started learning about kinesiology and the body, and I fell in love, and I have what I call my aha moment. I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to be learning. This is what I need to be. Macbeth really wasn't doing it for me. It was really about learning about the body and learning how it can help people. And so the one thing I would tell my younger self is just hold on a few more years. I know you love athletic training and you don't see yourself as much of a student, but just hold on. You're going to have your aha moment and it's going to be amazing. And you're going to feel like this is where I'm supposed to be for the rest of my life. And once that aha moment happens, it's just going to be amazing. So if you would have told 16-year-old me that, who barely graduated high school, that I would be pursuing a doctorate, I'd be like, you're crazy. You're crazy. I don't know what's in your water, but it's obviously affecting you. But I really want to echo that to any students who are listening right now. It might be hard and you might have to repeat a class or two, but that doesn't change that if this is really your mission, this is really your passion is going to take you to such great heights that you just don't know yet. And just because you don't know yet doesn't mean you're lost. Doesn't mean that you're not worthy of getting there. It just hasn't happened yet. So
I like that one. What has been the most influential resource that you have found in your career?
Oh man, that's a good one. Honestly, my colleagues. And the one blessing about this pandemic is because we've had to revert to technology, that I've been able to grow my connections via social media, via Zoom or Discord or Facebook or what have you. It has really given me a chance to reach out to different AT colleagues from all over the globe and just build my connections. But I love getting to meet people, and like you, because I know that's why you started this podcast, is because you like hearing people's stories and how you can, relate to them. And I'm the same way. And I think our colleagues are a great resource and an underutilized tool sometimes. So I'm very grateful for the pandemic in that sense, because I feel like it has given me more of an appreciation for my colleagues and my virtual colleagues, because they expand my thinking every day.
I'm actually really curious. I think, NATAs, all, people are getting together and chatting and all that stuff, but I think next year is going to be like that to a whole other level, because again, all the things you reference, now nobody else really, nobody had other things to do, so it's conversations on Twitter. You mentioned Discord and all the different things that are going on with that one. I mean, the interaction, and same thing with me. We're going to see if NATA happens. We'll see what the world.
Fingers crossed.
I joked about hopefully Mueller will be in on this too. Shout out to them. It'd be awesome to try and get all the AT chat guests all together at the same time, but have a thing where it's just hey, now all these random connections, and I've met very few of our guests in person ever, and short of going to convention, I don't know if I'll ever get out to LA, and you're probably not going to come to La Crosse, Wisconsin, and I don't hold that against you. I think NATA is going to be crazy in that regard, just because people are going to want to get together. Because
it's I've seen you and we've traded memes over Twitter. Let's do it in real life. Yeah, definitely.
So if you could change or eliminate one thing, could be a modality, a common thought process or practice in the field of athletic training, what would it be and why?
So I have two. And I mentioned this one last time. I'm getting rid of ultrasound. And if anything, the pandemic has reaffirmed that we do not need ultrasound, especially using telehealth medicine. I have never been I wish I could prescribe ultrasound for this patient. It has never been a thought that has crossed my mind.
If we open up, I don't know that we're going to even use the stim machines, just to one more thing we don't have to worry about sanitation wise. So I'm subtly excited for the more manual and physical movement medicine that might be coming. So sorry.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, I'm on the same page as you too. And then also ice has been a really big topic too, especially on Twitter. I know we keep referencing Twitter, but it's really big in our world right now.
I've talked to Gary Reno multiple times from the Mark Pro, and the dude has thought the argument through, and it's hard to argue with him. So I'm with him there.
Exactly. And it's something that I really want to try and reconsider into my practice as well too, because if you look at it, it's like, okay, really, it really makes sense. Why are we doing it?
You can do it better
You know?
than I think.
Yeah. And so that's definitely something I want to shy away from in my practice. Obviously, I'm not going to eliminate it completely, I don't think, because I do still use ice for analgesic purposes,
Hmm.
especially for people with a lower pain tolerance. Um, so I would like to shy away from that as well, and get into more like compression, lymphatic drainage massage, range of motion to help treat. I'm thinking specifically like ankle exercise or ankle, because that's what we see a lot of. But yeah, I would like to shy away from ice coming into my practice. And the pandemic has really made me think, in addition to DAT courses, what I want to change my practice
Hmm.
into when I come back.
Right.
So definitely things to consider for me.
I like it. Last one is, what does being an athletic trainer mean to you?
So I think an athletic trainer is being an athletic trainer is really a unique balance of being an advocate, a healthcare provider, but also being a confidant. So when I mean that, a confidant for not only your patients that you serve, but also, we wear many hats, right? So that confidant, you might be a confidant for your colleague, you might be a confidant for your athlete, for your coworker, for your organization, and then healthcare provider. Obviously, we are healthcare providers. There's no getting away around getting around it. And advocating. I don't think there has been an athletic trainer who hasn't had to advocate for our profession, whether that's critiquing. No, we're not personal trainers, we're athletic trainers, defining that
Yeah.
difference. I think we all advocate in different ways, whether you're advocating culturally, whether you're advocating, um, you know, by region, we're all having to advocate in different ways that are specific to our practice, right? So I think, athletic trainers, we wear many hats, but in many different situations as well too. They're not really conducive to one setting with one patient population. I think that's the cool thing about athletic training. We get to wear those different hats in many different settings.
Perfect. All said. Kind of in wrapping up, where can people follow you if they want, or reach out if they want to get in touch?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Twitter, that lady Liz. So THAT LADYLYSS. And then my email is avanima@calstatela.edu if you guys have any questions. And then you can also follow LatinxATs on Twitter, which is just LatinxATs, and Latinx athletic trainers on Facebook, and then same on Instagram as well too.
Perfect. And we will link all of that up for everyone for easy
Awesome.
finding. So, well, great to talk to you again. Thank you again for
Thank
taking the
you.
time.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course, absolutely. And we'll be in touch soon.
Sounds good.